Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Dallas ISD's community meeting for the H.S. Thompson Elementary School. We're excited to have you join us today. A few housekeeping items just so we'll all know how to participate. We are broadcasting live at www.dallasisd.org/bond 2015 meetings. There you'll also see a link where you can submit any questions and comments you may have for tonight's meeting. If you are joining us on Facebook, you can simply submit your questions and comments on in the comment section on our Facebook channel. We are on Facebook both in English and our Spanish language channel. So we're excited to have you join us today. With that being said, we have a number of people from Dallas ISD, including the amazing principal for this brand new school, who will be making a presentation tonight. So with that being said, we're going to introduce the principal, the one and only Principal Crystal Owens. Go ahead, Principal Owens.
Greetings, everyone. I'd like to say welcome to each and every one of you. We're so happy that you join us this evening for another community update. I would like to welcome our very own board member, from District 9, Trustee Justin Henry. He is with us today. We would like to welcome each and every one of our parents and community stakeholders. We're so pleased that you are here to join us today. Now, without further ado, the moment we've been waiting for. I'd like to turn it over to Brent Alfred, who will give us a construction project status community update. Take it over, Mr. Alfred.
Thank you, Principal Owens, and greetings, H.S. Thompson community. I'm honored and proud to be here and give you guys this update. So I wanted to give you guys a brief construction update for H.S. Thompson. Jackie, would you go to the next slide, please? Okay, this is going to be our meeting agenda. I want to talk to you guys about some of the construction challenges we had, some of the mitigation efforts we went through to minimize some of our schedule impacts, and then review with you our current project schedule, and then go through questions and answers with you guys. Next slide, please. So these were some of our challenges, our geotechnical conditions, and that's really just our soil conditions and the dirt for the foundation, our storm shelter rework issue, and of course, some of the recent weather we've had over the last few months. Next slide. Originally, our construction schedule, we gave our contractor an NTP, which is a notice to proceed, in May of 2020. And that was their substantial completion for H.S. Thompson at that point was scheduled to be June of 2021, around this time this year. That gave them a total of 409 days for their construction duration. Next slide. But quickly, when they started putting in the foundation for the building, they found that the soil conditions, the geotech conditions were a little different than what we had previously planned. They were planning on drilling piers at depths of about 40 feet. But once we got into the subsoil conditions, we found they were very different. You know, they were thick and gravelly. So we had to go back to our engineers. Next slide. We had to go back to our engineers to look at the design mix because we were impacted by water, gravel, and we were also receiving a lot of water from the rains in the holes and having to dewater. So the solution the engineer came up with was for us to do drive piles, which is the next slide. We had the revised method of piers. We went from drilled to hammered, which is a slower and more expensive process. As I mentioned, because of the water conditions, we also had to change our concrete mix as well as pier sizes. So when we got through with the foundation, when we look back, we had lost a total of 86 days. Our contractor notified us that, you know, the pier installation, the foundation part was 86 days behind. So the first thing we did, we said, well, now that we're out of the ground, let's try to get the building framed. And we accelerated the steel installation, which is the frame of the building. That was in December. We caught up on some time at that point. And then in January, we saw we were still behind on the project. We brought in additional support through AECOM, which is one of our program management firms, to put another set of eyes on the project and help us come up with different strategies. After going back and forth, we decided that, we needed to increase the labor efforts. We had been working 8-hour days, 5 days a week, but we thought, with the input from the contractor and the PM, that if we work 10, 12, or 16-hour days, 6 days a week, we would be able to catch up on time. Next slide. So that resulting in those strategies, that put us at an anticipated completion around late June to early July. Next slide. But then as we were moving through it, we ran into a conflict with our louvre design for the storm shelter. The storm shelters are a new requirement by the city of Dallas, and they need louvers for ventilation into the storm shelter space. Next slide. And the conflict arose because of the size of the louver and some of the rebar and the adjustments that needed to be made. Well, this is rework, and going back and forth, we lost more time on the job because of that. Next slide. So the results of that impact, and this happened, I forgot to mention earlier, this happened in our April, May timeframe. We were experiencing the louver design conflict. That actually pushed us back to that mid-September completion point. Next slide. Another thing that was also impacting us in May, we had an unusual amount of weather and rainfall. You can see on the screen here, I have what our averages are for this region, and some of the rainfall we did experience, which also compounded the problem. And I know everybody's familiar with the recent snowstorm we just had, as well as the rain we've been having this week. Next slide. So I mentioned the winter slide and the power loss, city closed, just things that were compounding some of our delays. Next slide. So with that, evaluating these impacts, trying to recover even with the acceleration, again, it pushed us to our mid-September completion, meaning we're going to miss the August opening for HS Thompson. And we think the next natural move-in portion would be around the November Thanksgiving timeframe. This will give the GCs an opportunity to complete his punch list, train staff, and deliver and install all the furniture within the building. Next slide. So as I mentioned, that's our proposition, and that's what I wanted to inform this community about, the Thanksgiving opening in lieu of August, because of some of the impacts we've experienced, trying to mitigate those, but not able to pull it all the way back to where we needed to be, and give you guys where we stand at today, and open ourselves up to any questions or concerns you guys may have.
Thank you, Mr. Afferton. Thank you, Principal Owens. Right now, if you're joining us again on Facebook, you can make any comments and questions in the comment section of Facebook. If you're joining us on our broadcast link, you can certainly ask your questions on the form found at the dallasisd.org/bond 2015 meetings. We do have Trustee Henry on the call. Trustee, would you like to make any remarks at this time, or we're waiting to see if we have any questions coming from the community?
Yeah, thank you. I will make some brief comments. Definitely want to open it up to the community. I want to appreciate the district for coming with us with this information. I understand there's already been some meetings with some community folks regarding the update. I want to encourage the district to continue to be transparent with the timing. Again, this is not the ideal news. I think we all wanted and anticipated the school opening this fall. Understand that there were some difficulties. Appreciate the district coming to us as soon as confirming those to let us know that we're not going to meet that deadline, and making sure you're transparent with the community on why we got to the point and what we're going to do going forward. Again, my primary concern with HS Thompson, as always, is that we have a world-class facility, that things are done right, the correct way. We're not having issues once the building is finally open. So again, ideally, I would have liked it to open in the fall, but getting it right is the most important thing. Making it an excellent facility is the most important thing, not only for the students, but for the community. So looking forward to hearing the questions as well from the community, and I'll go back on mute.
Wonderful. So far, we have one question or one comment coming in from a community member via Facebook, and I'm going to read it exactly. It says, whatever it takes and for however long it takes, the project needs to be done correctly for the sake of our greatest assets, our children. So I think they're echoing the trustees' remarks regarding that as well. Again, if you're joining us, this is about the HS Thompson delay in opening for the HS Thompson, new HS Thompson Elementary School located in Bonton in South Dallas. If you're joining us on Facebook, please feel free to share any comments or questions. And directly on Facebook, we will be asking those to the team. If you are joining us on the broadcast link, then you can submit your questions on the form located at dallasisd.org/bond 2015 meetings. So far, we're not getting that many comments or questions coming in. Mr. Alfred, if you don't mind, we did have a couple of people join us late. If you wouldn't mind reviewing the presentation just one more time while we're waiting on others to join us, and we'll move back to the first slide for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, this is a quick agenda. I'm going through the group, some of our construction challenges, the mitigation efforts we went through to minimize the schedule impacts, reviewing the current schedule of the project, and then opening it up to any questions and answers. Some of the challenges we experience, geotechnical conditions, again, that's our soil conditions for our foundation, storm shelter rework, and of course, some of the weather impacts we had. Next slide. Our original construction duration, we issued our notice to proceed to our contractor May of 2020 with an anticipated completion of June of 2021, around this time next year to be move-in ready. That was a total of 409 construction days. Next slide. But one of the first challenges that became very evident to us at the beginning of the project was doing the foundation design and drilling piers. When our geotech report, we were anticipating straight drill shaft piers about 40 feet deep, but we encountered different layers of sand and gravel between rock and finished grade. Next slide. These were, we also had uncharacteristic rain during that time that compounded us drilling our piers, water getting into the hole, having to dewater it, and we ran into different type of rock and soil conditions, as I mentioned, sand and gravel layers that caused us to have to go back to the drawing boards. Next slide, please. Went back to our engineers, and they recommended we do go from drill to hammered piers, which is actually a slower and more expensive process. Because of the water conditions and the groundwater we were finding, they also revised our concrete mix and also changed the size of some of our piers. Next slide. So when we were able to complete the foundation, but because of our change in method and some of the different site conditions, our general contractor informed us that we were 86 days beyond our original schedule. So what we immediately did, we said, well, let's accelerate on getting the frame of the building built. So in December, we issued them a change to accelerate the steel installation. We were still a little behind. So in January, we brought on additional resources and support with AECOM, one of the program managers. We talked with those guys internally, came up with different strategies, and we decided that we were going to go to the February board with an acceleration plan to double the labor forces from 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, to 6 days a week, 12 to 16 hours a day. Next slide. With that strategy, looking at all the metrics we knew at the time, that pulled our date back into June, early July. Next slide. But then in, it must have been April, May last month, we ran into conflict with our storm shelter, louvre, needing a redesign. The louvre allows ventilation into the storm shelter. It's a new requirement from the city of Dallas Fire Storm Shelter. Well, the louvre, the smaller size, we also had to modify our structure, the rebar in our structure, and going back and forth with our engineers, our design team, and our contractor to do this rework and corrective work. It also cost us some time. Next slide. When we got through it and where we are now, which is why I'm coming to the community, with current data, it again pushed our date back to a mid-September, meaning we would miss our August opening. Next slide. We also looked at the weather days we had experienced throughout, with the winter storm and the unusual amount of rainfalls we had during the duration of the project and what we could foresee in the future. Next slide. There were, everybody remembers the winter storm, loss of power and city being closed and those impacts as well. Next slide. And that put, as I mentioned, our current completion schedule in mid-September. And echo what the trustee was saying earlier, we were really pushing the team to complete the job, but we know when we move fast, sometimes more mistakes can be made. So we think the mid-September will give the GC enough time to correct the punch list items, train staff, and also deliver and install furniture in time. Next slide. And we thought the next natural break, not to be too disruptive to the community and the school, would be that Thanksgiving opening and make it a big celebration, a true Thanksgiving for HS Thompson, where they come back into a new building after the Thanksgiving break. So with that, I open it up to any questions or comments.
Great. Again, if you're joining us, this is a meeting to discuss the delay in opening for HS Thompson, the new HS Thompson being currently under construction in Bonton area of South Dallas. If you're joining us on Facebook, please feel free to ask any questions and make any comments just in the comment section on Facebook. We will be sharing those tonight. And if you're joining us via our broadcast link, you can submit your questions or any comments you have at www.dallasisd.org/bond 2015 meetings. We do have one comment coming in, one question that came in via Facebook. The question is, do you anticipate running into any more delays on this project, or is Thanksgiving a good solid date?
I believe Thanksgiving's a good solid date. Like I said, theoretically, we can make the September date, but we're putting theoretically weather days in each month coming up, about 5 calendar days we're building into that schedule. So should they happen, we've got that built in. And that's what we're doing to mitigate that risk coming forward or going forward.
Okay, so just to be clear, what you're suggesting, or what we're proposing, the district is proposing, is that the students will begin the school year at J.J. Rose, as they have been this past year, and then will transition into the new HS Thompson building after the Thanksgiving break. Is that correct?
No, that is correct.
Okay, wonderful. And of course, the community will have a big celebration and everything to launch the actual entrance into the new building during that time.
Mhm.
We have a couple of thumbs up on the comment section on Facebook, and we're not seeing any additional comments or questions coming in right now. Trustee Henry, would you like to share anything else, or is anyone else on the call on this particular meeting like to share anything else or any thoughts and ideas about the project? Okay. Again, we're going to leave the link up for comments on our website, and that website again is dallasisd.org/bond 2015 meetings. If you go there, we will share that link out on Facebook. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording of the meeting will also be on our Bond 2015 website, as well as, of course, always on our Facebook, both in English and Spanish channels on Facebook. So we will allow the questions so you can continue to ask questions using that form on our website. And with that, I'm going to turn the Trustee Henry, if you'd like to make any closing remarks. It seems like we're not getting additional questions or persons joining us right now. If you'd like to make any closing remarks, Trustee?
No, I don't have any additional comments other than what I stated before. I appreciate the patience and the grace from folks in the community by us DST meeting the deadline, missing the deadline. But I think the commenter earlier said it's really important that we get this right. That's the next facility for our community, done the right way.
And thank you so much for joining us this evening, Trustee. Principal Owens, with that being said, we'll let you close us out. I don't know if there's any information you want to share with parents or additional information about the school. Please, it's over to you to close us out.
I'd like to thank each and every one of us for being in attendance this evening. Thank you to the projection team. I think having to tell me and break the news to me, I think they were really sweating bullets. But you know, we're working out a plan, a calendar of how we're going to transition to HS Thompson, and it's going to be greater later. I'd like to thank our community stakeholders in attendance. I would like to thank our Executive Director, Shatara Stokes. I would like to thank District 9 Trustee Henry for your attendance and your words of encouragement. We really appreciate your support. Again, thank you all. Ms. Bell, thank you so much. Mistress of Ceremony, we appreciate you as always. Thank you and have a good evening.